Welcome to the channel. I'm Richard Cole. This is another Amari Music Talk. Thanks once again for tuning in. I know it's been a while since the last video, but been pretty busy the last couple of weeks, especially the past weekend. The 18th was my birthday. Although allergies were kicking my behind, I got to still enjoy it a little bit. Actually got to do some fun Prince stuff on that day. On Twitter, there's a group called the Prince Twitter thread. They've been around for quite a few years now, and they spotlight a particular Prince album. I've got to participate in a few of those. They're a lot of fun. So when you're on Twitter, hit hashtag Prince Twitter thread. Catch up on all of it. This last one was on the 1999 album. My contribution was a thread on the final track, International Lover. So, but I mean, all of the threads for every song on that album are absolutely amazing. So go check it out. And check out some of the past ones as well. Big shout out to Edgar Cruz and DJ, is it UMB? Is it DJ Correct me and let me know, but thanks to them for always allowing me to participate, and especially the last one. And it was coincidental that that thread dropped on my birthday, so that was a bonus. And another bonus, again, coincidentally, big shout out to Michael Dean with Podcast Juice, which is a podcast on Prince. I got to co-host or guest on the show with Mr. Dean, and we had a great time. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for that episode, but check that out. Check his show out as well. Lots of Prince information, interviews with associated artists, an amazing show, and it was definitely an honor to be on, and hopefully get to do it again sometime. But yes, definitely check that out. But today I am going to talk about a couple of things. I didn't really do any major vinyl or CD acquisitions. I mean, kind of just low key. Of course, no huge announcements from the Prince estate, so nothing to talk about on that front. But I did pick up a couple of things my last trip to Euclid Records. So I'm going to start with this album, which is titled Masterpiece. This is by The Temptations. This came out in 1973. I'm not, I'll take that back. I've got a somewhat of a history with this album. I remember kind of hearing a couple of cuts on the radio back in the day, but this is an album that an aunt and uncle of mine had in their collection. And you know, when I would visit, you know, over their house, you know, they had like a lot of the Temptations, like from like maybe the earliest, like The Temptations sing Smokey Robinson, that one, and then maybe up until this album. So they have virtually every Temptations album. Now, while I'm familiar with the Temptations, actually the very first 45 that I was given, the first 7-inch single, was Ain't Too Proud to Beg, back with You Lose a Precious Love. So, I mean, I've always enjoyed the Temptations, but it was through listening to their albums, my aunt and uncle's albums, that I really got deep into the Temptations. But this was one that was in the collection, and like I said, this was, you know, maybe not well known. Maybe the hits weren't as big as the classics. I think the album before this one had Papa Was a Rolling Stone, and which was kind of like, I guess, their last big major hit. Now they've had a few hits after that, But what's so significant about this album, to me, when listening to it, um, you know, it was, I mean, it was heavy on the funk, heavy on the instrumentation. The musicians, I think they still use some of the Funk Brothers. They still, or they use some Los Angeles musicians as well. So this was I mean, it was just really a heavy, heavy record to listen to. And and I like those kind of obscure things. I mean, I like the hits. I like the classic albums from artists. But every now and then you find, whether it is a legacy artist or just some obscure band or singer, and they'll have that one album that it just resonates with you. It may not be a big album or a classic album, but you just find something that's unique to you in the listening experience. And I think that's what this was for me, listening to it back then. Now, the producer, Norman Whitfield, has had a lock on the Temptations pretty much since Ain't Too Proud to Beg. You had where Smokey Robinson had that lock with, The Way You Do the Things You Do, My Girl, and it was really when Get Ready didn't quite, it was a hit, but it didn't kind of, it didn't measure up to, My Girl and, some of the other things that Smokey had done for the Temptations. So that allowed Norman Whitfield to slip in, and starting with Ain't Too Proud to Beg, I Wish It Would Rain, Beauty's Only Skin Deep, I'm Losing You, and then, that point where when David Ruffin wasn't in the group, and they brought in Dennis Edwards, and Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong put out or produced Cloud 9, and that took the Temptations to a whole nother level. And the thing with that was that Norman was really trying to compete with Sly Stone, because Dance to the Music had just dropped, and that took everybody, that took the world by surprise. And it was a game-changing hit, influential, that sound. So Norman, trying to compete with that, comes up with a Cloud 9, gives the Temptations their first Grammy win with that track. So when you get into that era of the Temptations, you got your Psychedelic Shack, Can't Get Next to You, again, Papa Was a Rolling Stone, Ball of Confusion, that made the Temptations one of the funkiest groups out there. We know they can, go toe to toe vocally, but the musical arrangements and the musicianship behind a lot of those tracks. So by the time you got to say Papa Was a Rolling Stone, you remember that was like so many minutes of just pure funk before the singing even starts. Well, this album doubles down on it in a very big way. Especially the song Masterpiece, which is like 13 minutes 54 seconds, and again, it's just pure unadulterated funk before the singing starts on it. So when I saw this, I'm like, and it was reasonably, again, reasonably priced. I'm kind of, like I said, into the used vinyl, because I just care about playing the stuff. I ain't trying to make a mint or own anything that's worth a mint. It's just want to just be able to play the records. That's what records are made for. So I decided to pick this up, and I checked it out in the store. Looks good. That classic Gordy label. I was always fascinated by how you had Motown, but then they had these subsidiaries, but it was still the Motown umbrella. So you had the Gordy, then you had Tamla, which Stevie was on, Marvin was on. Gordy, you had the Temptations, Rick James, Tina Marie. List goes on and on, but it's still the Motown family, you know, the Motown label. But I always thought that was fascinating growing up. Like, man, you know, it's 3 different labels, but it's the same company. Yeah, it's amazing. Now that's nothing nowadays because the corporations swallowed up all the record companies. So you have literally hundreds of record companies underneath this one corporate umbrella now. But back then, that was pretty fascinating. You know, the cover's a little, well, but like I said, when you buy a used record, you expect that going in. So, haven't had a chance to play this at all. Haven't had a chance to play much of anything. Been kind of more streaming lately. But yeah, I can't wait to give this a listen. I've kind of gone on streaming, maybe, I don't know, over the last, and kind of played some snippets just to jog my memory, but you know, I can't wait to really give it a listen, and I'll probably do a review for it on Patreon. So if you haven't become a subscriber to Patreon, go on, and even at the lowest levels, you know, you get shout outs and little perks and all kind of early access and exclusive content, so check it out. But yeah, but that's the Temptations masterpiece. Like I said, can't wait to really take that deep dive back into this record. The only other thing that I picked up was Ringo Starr, Goodnight Vienna. And listeners to this show, listeners to Amari Purple Talk, know that in addition to being a Prince fan, you know, or being into the funk, and also like, you know, some rock and roll as well, you know, and the Beatles are kind of on that top list of rock acts that I like. I even own some of their solo stuff, but I didn't have a lot of Ringo stuff. I got the album before this, which is just titled Ringo, and the thing about that was it's the closest to a Beatles reunion you'll get, because either you have two or three out of the 4 playing together. You had Paul contributing some tracks, John, George, and there's some other well-known, you know, producers, musicians, songwriters that contributed to that album, and that album was a huge success back in 1973. So this one, Goodnight Vienna, was the follow-up to that, and this came out, I think, 1974. Again, this is one I'm not really familiar with. Again, I've gone on streaming and kind of listened to some tracks, and you know, but I haven't had a chance to just kind of dive in. So again, this is another one I can't wait to listen to. But yeah, it's kind of nice to, like I said, check out some of their solo stuff, and I've got solo stuff from the other 3, but Ringo and George, I kind of need to kind of, you know, add to the collection at some point. But again, you know, this is the inner sleeve, got the lyrics, got some pictures, and actually I'm going to get this into an anti-static sleeve, that and the Temptations also. But again, you know, the record looks good, you know, not bad for a used record. Again, you know, take your chances, but you know, it looks pretty good. You can use a good cleaning, both of them. So I'll do that, put them in the anti-static sleeves, and really get to listening. And you know, I always like the, you know, any artist, I always like the kind of in the studio action shots on this. And you see kind of there's John, there's Ringo, let's see, there's Billy Preston, you know, hey, you know, will it go round in circles, da, da. And for those that aren't familiar with Billy Preston's history, he started off playing with Ray Charles. He's done some stuff on Sly Stone's There's a riot going on, I think uncredited, but he's playing on that. He's played on the Beatles' Get Back. In fact, if you have Disney Plus, check out the Get Back documentary. He is heavily featured in the second and third parts of that documentary, and you know, his keyboard playing is outstanding. You know, so by all means check it out. And from there, you know, he got, you know, or actually was playing with the Rolling Stones too as a keyboard player, and very good solo career. Like I said, Will It Go Round in Circles? That's my favorite. Nothing from Nothing Leaves Nothing. Later song, Born Again, which was a duet with Cyrita Wright, which was Stevie Wonder's ex-wife. So definitely an artist you want to check out. And one thing about this album cover as well, this was inspired by the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. It was a classic 1950 science fiction film. Instead of the main character, you got Ringo as the visitor. But there's the classic robot. Back in the day, back when no one had cable except California, New York, or something, you know, we were at the mercy of whatever was on the television at the time. But this was one that was always on, and I always liked it. You know, it was a good, you know, morality tale about prejudice, racism, you know, but it was told in a science fiction allegory. I do have the DVD of the remake with Keanu Reeves. That one was okay. It wasn't as, I would say, as entertaining as the first one, or it wasn't as deep as the first one. But it wasn't a bad film. I did not like the film. So, but yeah, just fun facts about the album cover on this one. So again, I can't wait to take some time and dive in, and I might do a video on this one also. Might do that. But again, like I said, not a lot this round. But coming up, looking forward to taping this this weekend. If you've seen episodes of Amari Purple Talk, you've seen me have this person on the show. It's PC Munoz, a musician, artist, producer extraordinaire. Has worked with Dr. Fink of the Revolution, has worked with Jackson Brown, has a wonderful discography of his own. By all means, check him out as well. But this week, Mr. Munoz and I will be discussing this album. And you've heard me talk about this on the last episode of Amari Music Talk. So definitely tune in for that. So this is Cameo Style that we'll be talking about on the next episode. And to me, Cameo is one of the 4 top bands of the 1980s. Excuse me, the top funk bands of the 1980s. And I'm going to do a video about those 4 top funk bands. So be on the lookout for that as well. But yeah, I can't wait to talk about the Style album. In fact, I'm going to give this a listen again, refresh my memory on this one. Wasn't too familiar with this one as opposed to their other ones like Alligator Woman, Cameosis, the She's Strange album, Word Up. This one, I don't know if it got lost in the shuffle, but yeah, I can't wait to listen to it again and go in depth on it with PC Munoz. So again, check that out. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so when that episode drops, you will be ready to watch. And that is going to end this episode of Amari Music Talk. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the content so far. What was your favorite album that was covered on these last couple of episodes? What did you think about the Jermaine Jackson video? And also, what artists would you like to see featured? If it's something that I have, I'll talk about it. If not, I'll check it out. I'll give it a listen and talk about it on a future episode. Also, too, if you do go on Patreon, you can make those suggestions, and I can even make a special video just on your suggestion, your topic, which album, artist, you would want to talk about. So by all means, check it out. Tune in next time, and until then, create your day and create your life. Peace.